It's been quite a long time since we've seen the 12 veteran drivers on the track all together, but tonight we're going to get another opportunity. This is the second round of the NFRN Champions League here at Riki Raceway. Hello again everybody, Colin Denton here with RVN. Excited to bring you another night of NFRN racing action. The last time we saw these guys out on track was at Columbia, where Eric Van Arsdale took home his first ever NFRN victory, and in wild fashion beating out John Arndt with a last lap pass and really solidifying his place in the league, even though he is now an Amateur Cup Series driver. But tonight it's a whole different beast, even though it's kind of the same thing. Super Speedway of Riki Raceway. These guys have experience here because we raced here last year in the Elite Cup Series, and we're going to race here again later today. But these guys know what this track feels like, and it's going to be something else for them to try to navigate these cars around this track and see who comes out on top in the end. Could see some wrecking. We know this place is a beast when it comes to those big types of crashes and the pack racing. But obviously they're going to see who can take that momentum into the final two rounds. And by the way, we didn't have those rounds set at the beginning of the season, but we do know what they are now. The third round will be Calder Park. As mentioned earlier in NFRN, the drive, that track came about after replacing Linden Hill in the Elite Cup Series. That will be the spot where we go for the third round of the Champions League at a road course in the next. And the final round will be at Myrtle Beach, or at a short track as well. And that will be the finale of the NFRN Champions League. A couple of different mediums of tracks to see who can handle everything best. But of course, Riki Raceway tonight, bit of a super speedway itself, and a lot faster because there's no restrictor plates on these cars. So we're going to see who is going to come out on top. And tonight we have the starting order inverted on the previous standings that they finished at last race. So as we take a look at the starting order, Steve and Willie, Noah Cars on the front row. Both didn't have the best of runs to start off this Champions League season and haven't had the best of luck in the Elite Cup Series either. Nick Smith starts on the inside of row number 2. Colin Lindsay, one of the Amateur Cup Series competitors this year, starts on the outside. Johnny Gardner on the inside of row number 3. Tyler Markell, having a sluggish start to his season as well, starts on the outside of row 3. Ramco Motorsport teammates of NASCAR Fan 19 and Rampage make up row number 4. Reese Butcher is having a pretty solid start to his season, and he'll start on the inside of row number 5. William Brock will round out the top 10. And John Arndt, making the inside of row number 6, came second place to the guy on his outside, Eric Van Arsdale. Now we're going to see who is going to take home the victory this time. Remember, Eric Van Arsdale, he started last at Columbia and obviously made the charge to the finish line. Of course, super speedways have that knack to really make some unpredictability, and you just got to be the best racer and know how to strategize and plan out your time, but you got to have a little bit of luck as well. And obviously Eric Van Arsdale had all of those factors go into his play last time around, and now he's going to see from the 12th starting spot, can he do it again and grab a second victory in the Champions League? Pace car pulls off a 2.25 mile track, ready to roar to life with these veteran drivers. Rounding the tri-oval, Steve and Willie takes off, the green flag flies, we're racing here at Riki Raceway. Well, I tell you what, Stephen Willie definitely not wasting his time. He really wanted to get out there fast, and fast he did. And we see Nick Smith, he came around second place, but on that high outside, really not the preferred line. It's going to cost a lot of people positions. But we see they're definitely staying in a pack and all scattering out to start off this one. NASCAR Fan 19 now looking to the inside. Stephen Woolley did lead that first lap, and obviously the bonus points for leading laps, a bit different in this system. We'll see who the top 3 in that lap-led category is at the end of this one. Noah Carr is your Clash winner earlier this season, now kind of being in the back of the pack right now, as is Rampage on the inside line. But just take a look at this and you can see how quickly that inside line can become the best line and put you up a few positions. He really got close to the quarter panel of Colin Lindsay right there. And Eric Van Arsdale already charging to the front. As noted earlier, your round 1 winner leads the point standings right now. Came across the line 5th last time. It looks like he'll come out 2nd this time around. He was in that middle line, with Brock leading the lap. And now he cuts the outside looking to block, but obviously the cars are storming on the inside, really not giving anybody any time to make any moves. Everyone's absolutely scatterbrained right now, and now it looks like the 44 car from the back now up to the front. And Cars has had a sluggish start to the season. He's currently 29th in points, entering race 5, which will take place immediately after today's Champions League race. We'll need to see what kind of performance he can get out of his race car. But he's obviously running pretty similar to what he ended up finishing last year. But if you want to talk real struggles, Stephen Woolley, one of your chase competitors last year, he hasn't finished in the top 30 so far this year. 31st at Pikes Peak is his best finish to date. Now, he's only DNF'd in 2 races, but the ones he didn't DNF out of, which were Pikes Peak and Mirage, which obviously didn't have a lot of DNFs. Wasn't able to really compete in those races either, and 2 tough places to pass. But obviously you got to have the strategy to really capitalize, and a chase competitor last year really needs to show that he is remaining relevant in this series. So you don't want to see a veteran driver struggling so much that at this point, I'm pretty sure he still is the last place among the full-timers. And now we see last race's runner-up, John Arndt, making his way to the inside, and he had a pretty solid performance at Riki last year. He finished 3rd. He was in that pack of competitors looking to contend for the victory and did not pull it off. That race went to Grayson Acevedo, not running this year. And he was one of the guys on the bubble for making the chase, but he came up a race short in winning his way in. Obviously, the 04 car had a great run to get his first victory, his only victory to date, and as long as he doesn't return to the series, might be his only victory ever. See the 64 car who had the lead on the 2nd lap. He's scattered to the outside. Looks like the 1 car had the lead for a second, but now it's going to be taken back by Noah Cars. We got 3 wide at the front. Van Arsdale's in this pack as well. It's a 32 lap event. And so far, so good on the wreck factor. They haven't done anything quite yet. Smaller field of cars helps, but as close as they're running, still any potential for trouble. Reese Butcher, your runner-up at Riki last year, and he was obviously in contention with John Arndt. And lap traffic really kind of screwed both him and Arndt. in trying to contend for that victory. I believe they got held up on the final lap just as they were coming to the start-finish line. Someone slowed them down. They managed to draft their way back up to Acevedo, but didn't make the move able to be pulled off. Oh, and Markel from the front gets turned around. Big crash in turn 3. Multiple cars involved. And Noah Cars plows into the 64 car. Caution, flag flies. And just as we were talking about how clean they were running so far, it just looks like all hell broke loose there. And definitely a larger crash than we had at Columbia. That one only involved like 3 or 4 cars, but this one is involving almost like 2/3 of the field. It's hard to say what kind of hits were taken there. It looked like the 64 and the 44, when they made contact in the middle of turns 3 and 4, and that was the 64 sliding down in front of cars. I believe that was the biggest hit, and those cars have not been able to pull away from the accident, but everyone else has. Now it's just a matter of how damaged are they. And John Arndt was able to lead the way back to the line. Rampage followed him, as well as Johnny Gardner, Van Arsdale. And then it looks like Nick Smith. We're going to see green flag pit stops, but it looks like Colin Lindsay is actually going to stay out. So that is an interesting call by the 95 car. We'll see what's said about that strategy call on the 95 team, but the rest of the field now coming down to get their pit service. John Arndt leading the field in that, with Van Arsdale coming in just behind him. Looks like the majority of the people will take 4 tires. Tires are obviously not a real big problem when you're racing super speedways, but of course you do want to stay safe in case one of those may pop at any time. And Arndt pulling away, try to get blocked by Rampage. He might make it a little bit, and Gardner is gonna give him a little block as he pulls out as well, and Arndt on his way back at the front after the pit stops. Well, that little bit of drama right there is going to cost the 1 car a spot to Johnny Gardner. Obviously a lot of time to make it up on a pretty fast racetrack, but not sure how much he's going to appreciate that one. Now let's take a look at the replay and see what happens here. So Markel running up, and he just squeezes Nick Smith. It looks like he's trying to cut a line there, but it didn't work, and Markel gets spun around, and then it looks like Willie got into NASCAR Fan 19. Willie's going to take a hard contact to the outside wall. Markel's also slid up there. I think we're going to lose a part of this accident, but this is the back half of the field. Willie and Markel obviously involved. Smith got a little bit of contact, I believe. Let's see how well everyone else misses it. We see cars, but he's obviously going to get into the wreck eventually. Not here, though. You know, he just barely misses Willie. Looks like that's the end of that section, but there was another part up front. Let's see what we see from that angle. So yeah, then 48, pretty bad decision-making move right there, and then Reese Butcher-Bottoms out on the apron, hits William Brock. NASCAR Fan 19, already a part of the accident, gets collected, and as he slides down, oh, Noah Cars is just not going to be able to avoid that one, even though the 2 cars in front of him were. And that leaves the 64 and the 44 car smoking. We'll take a single onboard look before we head to commercial break. NASCAR Fan 19 watches that one unfold in front of him. And just as it looks like he's going to get away, big hits for that number 64 car. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Hey man, you cut me off back there. What you gonna do about it? Oh man.
Can you feel it? The taste of Coca-Cola when the race is
Alright,
over.
fine.
Can you feel it? Life ain't possible. The taste of
Are we good? We're good.
We return to racing action with the 64 and the 44 car out. After this bone, we see Colin Lindsay has pulled his car down onto pit road behind the pace car as they're getting ready to come back to green flag. 95 on pit road. And they're going racing. John Arndt leads them. And it looked like there was an issue with the running order. I saw Stephen Willie, I think that was it to the inside of somebody. I don't know if there was a miscommunication on the starting spot. We'll see what race control says about it. Van Arsdale gets off to an early jump. He's already made the pass on Rampage for third. Looking to chase down Arndt and Gardner, who are able to maintain their spots right now as they came off pit road, and Stephen Willie coming down onto pit lane. It looks like he got a passing penalty. Obviously, you can't go on the inside of somebody that you're supposed to be behind on the restart, but we are not sure who he was supposed to be behind. But obviously didn't find his spot in line before the restart. And we do have an update on Colin Lindsay. It sounds like crew chief Russell Denton planned to keep Lindsay out a couple more laps as a strategy play, but the team was caught off guard by the shorter caution period. The pace car only kept the cars under pace for 2 laps, and the lights shut off as everyone else was on pit road, and that really put them at a disadvantage. So a big problem for the 95 car. He obviously didn't get off to the start he wanted in the Champions League, and he's not having the best of seasons so far in the Amateur Cup Series either. He's hardly able to make the top 14 and get into contention for qualifying for more Elite Cup Series races, but we see now 3 wide at the front of the pack, and this has become a 4-car breakaway. It looks like these are the only cars that were not damaged in that wreck, and Rampage is going to be the one to lead the lap, but it looks like everybody is going to watch these 4 cars in terms of who's going to win this race, because it looks like those are the only 4 guys that don't have any damage. Lindsay might have had that opportunity, but he came down. We're going to be back after a quick commercial break.
My gosh, Johnson forces the issue into turn 3. Johnson forces the issue.
Sunoco, the essence of racing.
We return to Riki Raceway for NFRN Champions League racing action. We're with you for the final 15 laps of this one as we see John Arndt is making the move on Rampage for the lead, and Eric Van Arsdale looking to follow him. The fact that we only have these 4 drivers in contention for this win is a huge door opened for the 67 car to make it a repeat. And some lap traffic kind of held up a couple of the guys, and Gardner is trying to chase his way back up, but we'll see just how much of an effect the draft has on this racetrack as we watch the 6 car on board to see how he catches up. They are approaching another car. And I believe that is Lindsay. Let's see which lane he chooses, as he is a bit slow. He is considerably slower than the other drivers, and it looks like the outside is going to be the one that gets held up, and Lindsay's going to hold up Arndt for the time being, but looks like he's going to have drafting help. And honestly, Lindsay shouldn't be damaged at this point. I believe he will actually maintain his running position in this pack as long as he is okay, as we believe he is. But the 67 definitely loving that clean air, because every lap he leads means an extra opportunity that he's going to get the 5 bonus points for leading laps. 5 bonus points goes to the guy with the most laps led. 3 points to the second most laps led, and 2 points to the third most laps led. Those are bonuses on top of the raw points that drivers earn for their finishing positions. And the 67 trying to lead as many as he can, but he's going to have 3 challengers along the way in John Arndt, Rampage, and Johnny Gardner. And we see the one car has pulled in front. And tough luck for Reese Butcher, who he looked like he was going to have the lead and get out of that one scot-free, but obviously he bottomed out, hit William Brock, and that really hurt his car, and now he's going to be the car that gets caught up next by this front pack. And you can already see in the background they are really charging up on this 90 car, and he's going to have to pick a lane real fast because they are going to pounce on him quickly. And he's going to the outside, and that is going to hold up that line. And that has John Arndt and Rampage in it. Now a 3-car breakaway, which includes the lapped car of Lindsay, now pulls up into 8th place. And you can definitely tell the 95 car is going to try to benefit on any slow cars that he can while running with this front pack. Lindsay currently running 18th place in the Amateur Cup Series standings through 3 races, which is a 4th of the regular season. Next week they'll be at Grand Detour, and he will not have the opportunity to qualify for tonight's Elite Cup Series race, but he'll continue to run this one, even though it looks like his chances of winning at this point look slim. Unless, of course, there happens to be some kind of obscure fuel strategy that comes into play, but we'll wait to see how that looks. I believe that everyone is going to have to take another fuel stop, and that will include Lindsay. We are under 10 laps to go, approaching 9. Johnny Gardner continues to just work it out behind Van Arsdale, and obviously the laps led bonus makes him feel pretty comfortable, but Lindsay definitely not playing into Gardner's favor if he's going to make moves like that. But Lindsay obviously wants to get in front of Van Arsdale in the strange case that there is a caution, and that would put Lindsay back on the lead lap and get him around so that he could possibly contend. So he obviously wants to race these guys to see if he can be in front if a caution were to come out. John Arndt and Rampage still trying to work their way, but here they come. They are going to make a fuel stop, and it is pretty far away from the checkers, which means Lindsay is probably going to have to come in behind these guys at some point. We've got all 4 of these front runners coming down at one time. We'll pay close attention to Eric Van Arsdale. The tires are not very much of a necessity here, but it will come down to what the strategy play is. Will they take 2 tires? Will they take 4? What kind of time is it going to cost them, and how much do they need it? And the 67 is going for 2 tires. Arndt is off the jack, but it doesn't look like he's going for 4, and he's not taking off yet. Gardner has, and both the 05 and the 1 car are delayed, but the 67 trying to race the 6 off of pit road. And that 6 car has been right with Van Arsdale for this entire time, but as he tried to challenge him, doesn't look like he slowed him down enough, but we'll see how he's able to catch up. And dirty air just might be enough for Gardner to catch back up to Van Arsdale, but it could become a possibility that the 67 got such a good jump off of this road exit that he might be able to pull away. We see Colin Lindsay is on pit road. I don't think any amount of strategy was going to work in this situation, so really bad miscalculation on the 95 team in terms of trying to figure out how much fuel they were going to get to the end of this one. We're looking further back in the pack, and these are two guys that did get damage, and that's Nick Smith along with Tyler Markell. Now, let's be honest, the amount of talent that's in this field compared to last year, it's pretty insane. We had 6 drivers that finished in the top 10 at Riki in 2016 that are racing here today. All of those guys, veteran drivers. You had Butcher in 2nd place, Arndt in 3rd. Nick Smith finished 9th. You had Van Arsdale in 10th, Rampage in 7th, and Gardner in 4th. And now Gardner looks like he's going to be the one that has the biggest ability to get to the front. And he's already caught Van Arsdale. That was a pretty quick get up, and he's going to make the move on Van Arsdale. I definitely shouldn't be challenging the draft at this track. We saw the effectiveness it had last year. That's how Butcher and Arndt were able to make the moves to catch up to Acevedo and almost contend for that victory. And Gardner just pulled off the same move to get to Van Arsdale. Lindsay is back in that pack again. But the biggest point of this is Arndt and Rampage have fallen off of this draft. And it's really coming down to these two guys. It's going to be Van Arsdale going for a repeat, or Gardner going for his 2nd career NFRN victory after his Elite Cup Series victory at RTR Motorsports Park last season. 5 laps to go, and this crowd is going wild. They are absolutely loving the racing going on between these two drivers. Obviously, they'd love to see a pack, but given the accident, you don't have many competitive guys right now, considering all of them are pretty much damaged. But you're watching some pretty clean racing between 3 guys that have their cars intact, and Willie, a slow car, he's going to put the block on the 3-car train that was coming up behind him. Willie already lost a lap because of his unexpected pit stop, which had to serve a penalty on, and Van Arsdale getting caught up by it. And this is a big development, but you also have William Brock up here. He's looking to lose his first lap. Van Arsdale gets to the inside of Willie, and now he's going to try to chase back down the other 2 cars. And we go on board with him now to watch this as 3 laps to go. He gets underneath Brock, back up to the bumper of Lindsay, and trying to chase down Gardner for the lead. This is where the intensity grows, and obviously that finish should be a good foreshadowing to how this one might play out. And he cuts to the inside of Van Arsdale, does. As he gets out of the trial, Lindsay makes the same move, and they're both going underneath Gardner. 6 cars subjected to the outside line. And he'll pull back in. A lap and a half to go. Van Arsdale to the bottom of Lindsay. And he's going to have the line, and Gardner will follow. As they come to the white flag, it's going to be these 2 cars neck and neck. But they're coming up to Reese Butcher, who's slow. White flag out. Butcher cuts down on Van Arsdale, and they make contact. And Butcher holding up those 2 cars. Lindsay breaks away. 67 made contact with the 90. The 6 car right behind him. And now we got to see who's going to make the move. And the 67 does, and the 6 follows. Can Gardner make it 3 wide? Coming into turn number 3, down the backstretch. He looks, but he can't make it work. Gardner trying to upset Van Arsdale from a repeat finish. And here they come, into the trial bowl. Gardner looks for the move. Who's going to get it? Coming to the line, photo finish, Van Arsdale. 2 in a row for the 67 car, and he is once again a winner in the NFRN Champions League. How about that? For the second time in a row, Van Arsdale comes from the last starting spot, and he is going to win this one. That is one insane finish. And Gardner almost had it. That was 2/100ths of a second. Watch this. Coming to the start-finish line at the white flag, Butcher cuts down, and contact is made. The 90 car cut off the 67, and he still saved it, and he went on to victory. Put that in the instant classics. What a finish here tonight at Riki Raceway, and we still have a race to go here tonight. As we review our final results, Van Arsdale, he has got all of the speed going his way and definitely showing what kind of skill he has. 2 victories in a row. Discount the small field, that's still an impressive feat, especially for a guy who missed out on the chase last year and didn't have any victories in 2016. Johnny Gardner was so close right there and almost had it work. You never know what would have happened if Butcher wasn't in the way, but it all comes down to all the circumstances that lead up to that finish line, and Gardner was not able to pull it off. John Arndt finishes in 3rd and Rampage 4th after they both fell off of that draft. Nick Smith and Tyler Markell finishing 5th and 6th. Colin Lindsay will be on the lead lap in 7th place. And ultimately, the wreck left 2 cars out and another 3 cars going a lap down really slow on the racetrack. And now your standings after race number 2. Eric Van Arsdale extends his lead over John Arndt. Obviously, that 3rd place finish for Arndt keeps him in contention, but still a pretty good gap between the 67 car and the rest of those guys. He just needs to make sure that he's able to make the moves needed in the road course at Calder Park to keep himself in position. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to navigate at Calder Park, but he's really lucky he got out of Linden Hill, which is really a hard place to pass, and Calder Park might be the opportunity he gets to make some moves, but that will be his doing from the back of the field. Further back, you got to watch out if you're Stephen Willie or Noah Cars. Obviously, those two have had the worst of seasons to start off with, but if you can't perform in the next race, they could be out of contention before the final round even starts. Well, that'll do it for the second round of the NFRN Champions League. We hope you'll join us for the next round at Calder Park in Australia. That'll be several weeks away, and we'll have plenty of NFRN racing action in between, starting with the Elite Cup Series race here at Riki Raceway in just a few moments. But for now, my name's Colin Denton with RVN, and we hope to see you next time.